Saturday evening a week ago, just like some of you whom I saw there, I attended a conversation spotlighting the author Ta-Nehisi Coates, who is many things, but for the point I want to be making right now, is a black man who currently works at a black institution, Howard University. And in the course of the conversation, facilitated by Dr. Tracy Griffith, who is a former professor at St. Mike's and who is also black, they discussed what is happily lost and happily gained when working at a black institution rather than at a PWI. I hadn't heard that term before, but as soon as it was defined, I knew it in my bones. Predominantly white institution. All three words capitalized, like it is a thing with its own culture, right? Which it is. If this congregation is your spiritual home, no matter your racial identity, you know it too, consciously or unconsciously. For good or for ill, this congregation is a PWI. Now, Ta-Nehisi Coates related that as flawed as his alma mater and currently his employer is, working there has freed him. And he didn't say it in exactly the way that I'm about to say. This is my word choice. Freed him from the degree and level of WPN. White people nonsense. Yes, that phrase is also capitalized. White people nonsense that weighed on him and constrained his imagination in other PWI workplaces. Atlantic. Okay. In that moment, one of my visions for this congregation, this PWI, crystallized. That we might become so versed and capable and welcoming and culturally literate and most of all, racially non-defensive, especially the white people in this congregation, so as to create a space that, yes, will likely always be a PWI. We are, after all, in Vermont. But will have the versatility and the facility to lift the weight for those people of color who risk making this their spiritual home. To lift the weight for those people of color and community partners outside of the society who are willing to risk partnering with this particular PWI in living out our shared values. In recognizing that as wonderful as Vermont is, it is not as equally or equitably wonderful for people of color, especially black people, as it is for white people. Yeah, I'm going to let that sit there. Sometimes when we talk about a Unitarian Universalist congregation deepening our anti-racism, we get stuck on the idea that to do so, the only way is to become more multicultural or multiracial about who is sitting in the pews. Some of us, and I have heard this from different white people in every ministry I've had, want to invite people of color into PWI space as if everything would be solved. Yet, without a willingness to change culturally, such suggestions sound, to my ears, like a form of window dressing, a focus on the hues in the pews that centers a white wish to feel better about demographics of any particular PWI. Friends, I see the younger people in the room nodding way more than the folks with the gray hair. My vision for this congregation that exists in the second whitest state in the Union is for every one of us, and especially those of us who are white, to expand our welcome beyond tokenism, to decrease our non-defensive responses, to grow not just our cultural literacy, but our emotional intelligence for healthy engagement and even for conflict, to bring our attention to the impact of our actions and not just assume good intentions, and to focus on deepening our cross-cultural relationships with community partners. Whether the racial identity of this congregation ever changes significantly, we can be a part of accountably dismantling systems of oppression, including racism, in ourselves and in our institution. Amen? Amen. Thank you. Now, there are smaller, more technical visions that I have for this place and this people, and the list, as I was working on the sermon, got really, really long, and rather than overwhelm you with them here or have this Sunday service go intolerably long, I think I'm going to find a way to include them in my annual report, but I can't stop myself from saying these three next things. First of all, it seems odd to me that we do not have a campus ministry team, given that we are located in the same town as a university that draws you students from across the nation. Odd and a missed opportunity. Secondly, let us deepen and widen our energetic welcome and celebration of and sanctuary embrace all around the queer community. In the alphabet soup of the abundant human family, I say, all the letters, baby. All the letters. And thirdly, and far too brief for this overall topic, but I hope that anything we do as our response to the climate crisis, that it be about beings, not just buildings. Can you expand on that? No, I cannot expand on that, Zoe. Not here or now, but sometime. Now, the next vision that just might break rule number 4 from earlier, which is to say this might be my wish rather than something that becomes our vision. So I'm just owning that up front. But if that's the case, I can live with that. But there's at least one person in this room who shares this with me. Maybe you know this, but 70 to 80% of Americans say that they want to die at home, but only 25% or so do. When there is such a mismatch between what people state they want and what actually happens, it is worth paying attention to what can be done about that imbalance. But here's the thing. Dying at home is a team sport. You cannot do it alone. It requires not only people, but people who feel at least willing and hopefully able and equipped to tend to the person as they are dying. And many of us do not have that team, even if we have family or friends around us. And so I wonder, what if we, here at First UU, were to create a culture and a calling where we provide companionship and presence to those among us who are dying and want to do so at home? This is a very specific kind of pastoral care, one that can only emerge if the basics of congregationally based pastoral care are already in place. And we are in the process of developing this since the pandemic kind of kicked our butt in this regard. In fact, this coming Saturday, 10 members of this congregation are spending the whole day being trained as pastoral visitors, so that sometime this, maybe late spring, perhaps as far away as early fall, we will be able to introduce a program to our care network. That care network, which right now provides meal train coordination and prayer shawl ministries and a weekly message that makes sure we know about each other's joys and sorrows, adding to it. adding to what we already do when it comes to supporting those with the planning and provision of memorial services alongside the rare visits by one single minister trying to tend to the needs of a 400-member congregation. There is so much more that could be possible, like ongoing grief or care for the caregiver groups. Parenting support at a time when the Surgeon General says that parenting stress is impacting the mental health not only of parents, but of children, whole families. What if we were able to provide a dedicated, spiritually grounded space for those folks who are being directly impacted by the hate being spewed by those in the federal government? Those who left hostile states and came here to Vermont not only for safety, but thriving. Those who now feel that to get through this authoritarian era, they need community, and we are their sanctuary. And here's another what if. What if we had a crew of people who made phone calls and texts, if phoning is not your thing, to every member of the congregation at least once a year and maybe even twice, so that the only time someone hears from First UU, it isn't at pledge time. Wouldn't that be wonderful? These great activities, when enacted by lay folks, that's amazing. But if they are to be sustained for the long haul, there needs to be staff support. Yet last year, our staffing didn't grow, and it didn't even stay the same. It contracted. And still, our budget isn't balanced. Wherein I dream of expanding the staff, even considering another minister at least half-time. The pledge income and the budget just don't agree with me. Yet, I refuse to play small. It does not serve the world, this community, or this congregation and our future together. I know that at the moment we are not in a financial position to do this, but friends, there is so much that we could do to meet the needs of an aging congregation, to meet the needs of an age-diverse congregation that is attracting more and more folks without gray hair. Well, okay, not fully gray, right? I know there is some gray hair out there too. That we could meet the needs of newcomers longing for belonging and needing just a little bit of help to connect here, because this is a large space and sometimes it's hard to find your way. We can, and I hope we will, in the coming years, create an even more robust space where all flourishing is mutual. May this be on your mind as you fill out your annual pledge form to sustain this congregation, which sustains you, which sustains many more and so much more. And I invite you, whether you are pledging or not, to come back next Sunday so that we can celebrate the generosity of this people and this place, that we might all be that third builder, not just getting by, not just building a wall, but envisioning the cathedral that we could become. So be it. See to it. Amen.